So for a guy like me coming into it, obviously with a lot of experience in the field, taking a lot of game, been in some really interesting situations from a backpacking standpoint, what have you. But this is going to be a whole new world as I go into it, and I'm going into it with an open mind. How do you encourage and teach people like me that are going to be graduating into this? Because that's what it kind of feels like. It's, I've taken everything with a bow, handgun, muzzleloader, center fire. This is the next graduation for me. How do you teach a guy like me? What do I need to do to get started? And how do I start building those mental, those mental steps in my head to getting out in the field successfully?
I think the fact, if you come at it from as a bow hunter, you're already kind of at a step above than if you're coming at it as a firearm hunter. Because it is much more akin to bow hunting than it is to firearm hunting, and that you want to close the distance. Your field skills have to be good. You want to be able to pick up the animal before they pick you up. You want to be able to set up a stock where you're not going to get busted. I think the thing to approach it, regardless of how you do it, how you come into it, the way to approach it is that you have to look at why you're doing it. I mentioned I differ from some of the guys in that I don't like shooting air guns long distance at game. I'm fine doing it at steel plates and things, but I think that if you take an air gun out to 125 yards to shoot a game animal, you can take them, but you're going to lose a certain amount of them, and you can't be sure with every shot. It's just not. If I wanted to shoot that far, I'd really just use a firearm. For me, the reason for doing it is to get in close, to do the stock, to play against the animal. It's about the hunt, not the shooter. So I think that first thing you have to do is figure out why you're doing this. And if it's that you want to really get in and do the stock, I think it kind of sets up what skills you have to have, what equipment you have to have, and what your success will be. So that's the first thing. And then once you've done that, you say, okay, what are the differences between this and whatever sport I'm coming from? So for the firearm hunter, they have to say, look, I can't get near the kill zone. I have to be on the kill zone. There's much more precision that's needed in your shot placement than with the firearm. You don't get that massive hydrostatic shock that you get from hitting a deer with an air gun as opposed to a 50 caliber air gun as opposed to a 30-06. I mean, you just don't get that same shock, and you don't create that massive wound. So even though some of the guns are getting more powerful and you do get some expansion and getting close to what looks like the hydrostatic shock, really what you're doing, it's like bow hunting. You're trying to puncture a vital organ. So you have to be sure of where you're placing your shot. So that's one thing, is that you have to be much more selective and much more disciplined in what shots you're going to take than when you come at it with the firearm. The other difference between coming at it from firearms is that air guns have a pretty significant trajectory. I mean, you're still dealing with fairly lower velocity projectiles. So if you're shooting a 400 grain bullet out of a 50 caliber gun, and it's going at 700 feet per second, at 50 yards, it's like,
right.
So there's a big difference between where you put the shot at 30 yards and where you put it at 50, or where you put it at 70 if you're reaching out. So you really have to know your gun and your load, and work it up. I have a lot of guns. I've got 13 or 14 big bores, and I've got about 50 or 60 standard bores, and I've got a lot of guns coming through. But I tend to say, okay, in a given year when I'm going to do a lot of big game hunting, I'm going to try to stick to these 2 or 3 rifles maximum, so I don't get so spread out. When I have a shot at 40 yards, I'm thinking, does this rifle hit an inch high or an inch low, or is it on target there? You've got to really take that time to get acclimated and familiarized to your equipment.